The SCP Foundation is home to some of the most terrifying creatures ever imagined. Entities that can end reality, monsters that regenerate no matter how many times you kill them, and horrors that drive people insane just by looking at them. But buried in that nightmare catalog are a handful of entries that are genuinely unexpectedly wholesome. So today, I'm breaking down the friendliest SCPs ever documented, starting with two little guys who might be the most beloved residents in Foundation history, SCP-131, the iPods. Imagine working at a top-secret facility that contains eldritch horrors, and the highlight of your day is getting followed around by two teardrop-shaped creatures with giant eyeballs. That's SCP-131, the iPods. One orange, one yellow. These sentient little guys roll around the facility, follow personnel through hallways, peek around corners, and generally behave like paranormal golden retrievers. Their containment protocol is basically let them roam. Staff are just encouraged not to let them outside. That's it, just vibes. But here's where it gets impressive. The Foundation discovered that SCP-131 can stare at SCP-173 without blinking. Ever. Their eyes don't need to blink at all. Two adorable little orbs doing what entire armed security teams struggle to do, keeping the concrete neck snapper completely immobilized just by looking at it. A proposal was actually submitted to use them as a permanent countermeasure. That's not just friendly, that's actively saving lives. But as adorable as the iPods are, they're not even the friendliest thing the Foundation has locked up. Not by a long shot. SCP-9099. The Tickle Monster. Going from sentient eyeballs to a literal blob of happiness feels like a leap, but SCP-999 earns every bit of its reputation. This thing is a gelatinous, amorphous entity that looks like a giant orange puddle of slime, and the second it touches you, you start laughing uncontrollably. Not nervous laughter, full-on, tears streaming, can't breathe laughter, because SCP-999 measurably elevates serotonin levels and drops aggression in anyone it makes contact with. The containment protocol for this thing is essentially give it a padded room and leave the situation alone. Zero security measures, no reinforced doors, no armed guards. It voluntarily walks itself back to its chamber after interactions. The Foundation is basically babysitting a friendly puddle, but don't let the comedy fool you. Documented testing showed significant reductions in anxiety, depression, and PTSD symptoms among D-class personnel after exposure sessions. A few minutes with a giggling blob and hardened criminals are sleeping through the night. The entity also actively migrates toward distressed individuals, like some kind of emotional support Roomba. Now here's the kicker. SCP-999 was once exposed to SCP-682, arguably the most feared entity in the entire Foundation, a near indestructible reptile that hates all life. And this sentient puddle of giggles actually got 682 to laugh. The giant murder lizard was rolling around in fits of joy, but because nothing good lasts in the SCP universe, 682 eventually recovered, went berserk, and breached containment. A jello mold hugged the apocalypse into temporary submission, and it still wasn't enough. I don't know what to tell you, but if you think a tickle monster is heartwarming, wait until you meet a teddy bear that literally stitches broken people back together. SCP-2295. The bear with a heart of patchwork. Most SCPs that interact with people do it through force, or fear, or some reality-bending nonsense that leaves everyone involved slightly worse off. SCP-2295 is a teddy bear, a sentient patchwork teddy bear that performs surgery. And before you write that off as some low-tier anomaly the Foundation keeps around for laughs, hear me out. When a person near SCP-2295 has a damaged or missing organ, the bear gets to work. It pulls out a needle and thread, sources nearby fabric, and stitches together a perfect replica of whatever organ the person needs. A functioning, transplant-ready organ made entirely out of cloth. And it works. The Foundation has documented it crafting replacement kidneys, hearts, and lungs out of whatever material is lying around. Cotton stuffing becomes a working ventricle. That's not a teddy bear, that's a miracle with button eyes. But here's the detail that genuinely got me. The bear doesn't just technically replicate the organ, the fabric replacements are fully functional inside the human body, stitched together by a stuffed animal using a tiny needle, and they integrate like real tissue. It literally sits there, cross-legged, sewing someone a new heart out of a pillowcase. That's the kind of quiet, devastating detail that doesn't need dramatic framing. It just sits there and hurts. And then there's the limitation. SCP-2295 can't fix brain damage. When presented with a subject suffering from a neurological condition, the bear tried, failed, and then sat in the corner of its cell, clutching the fabric. Not a grand failure, not a dramatic meltdown, just a small, specific moment of sadness from something that probably shouldn't be capable of sadness at all. Now, if a teddy bear making you cry wasn't enough of an emotional curveball, wait until you meet the guy who keeps accidentally falling into other dimensions and somehow still shows up to work. SCP-507, Reluctant Dimension. Hopper. Every SCP we've talked about so far has been a thing, an object, a blob, but SCP-507 is a person, and that changes everything. He's a young man the Foundation picked up after he started involuntarily shifting into parallel realities. No warning, no control, no off switch. One second he's eating lunch, the next he's standing in a dimension where the air is unbreathable, or the ground is made of something that used to be alive. Then he snaps back like a rubber band, which is, not ideal as a lifestyle. Here's what makes this guy special though. His containment protocol is basically a furnished room with a GPS tracker and some emergency supplies. That's it. No armed guards, no reinforced walls. The Foundation, an organization that locks eldritch horrors behind 12 feet of steel, looked at this man and said, yeah, he's cooperative, and he really is. 507 is classified as safe, and he genuinely tries to be helpful. After every shift, he files a detailed report about whatever nightmare dimension he just got dropped into. One reality was pitch black and silent except for a voice that kept telling him to stay still. Another had a version of Earth where every human was dead, but the infrastructure was still running. Lights on, nobody home, a whole empty planet humming along without a soul in it. But he didn't ask for any of this. The shifts are involuntary and sometimes genuinely life-threatening. He's come back injured, he's come back terrified, but every single time, he cooperates. He files the report, he puts on the tracker, he stays in his room. That low security containment isn't a failure, it's earned trust, and 507 has never broken it. But if you think a reluctant hero is heartwarming, wait until you meet an SCP that turns ordinary people into heroes on purpose. SCP-1230, a hero is born. So far, we've talked about SCPs that comfort your body, a warm hug, a healing touch, a friendly creature that makes you feel safe. But SCP-1230 doesn't care about your body, it wants your mind. And honestly, it might be the most powerful friendly SCP on this entire list. SCP-1230 is a hardcover green book. Self-repairing, impossible to damage permanently, stored in a standard locker at Site-19. Sounds boring. Here's the thing. Open it and the only words inside are "a hero is born." Close the book, go to sleep, and you enter an extended, vivid, lucid dream. A full-blown fantasy world generated from your own psychology. Structured narratives with characters, arcs, and worlds that feel completely real. The entity running the show calls itself the Bookkeeper, a friendly old wizard who builds the adventure around you. You're always the hero. The Foundation requires level 2 clearance and supervised sessions, but the fact that they allow access at all tells you something. The most paranoid organization in fiction looked at this thing and said, yeah, let people use it. That's practically a 5-star review. Subjects consistently describe the dreams as the most meaningful experiences of their lives. People waking up in tears because they don't want to leave. The dreams can last what feels like entire lifetimes inside a single night's sleep. You could live years as a dragon-slaying king and wake up to your alarm at 7 a.m. But here's where it gets bittersweet. The Bookkeeper knows he's not real, he knows the worlds are temporary, and he gets attached. One test log describes him becoming visibly sad when a session ended. An immortal dream wizard, lonely inside a book, pouring everything into making strangers feel like legends. That's not horror, that's heartbreak. There's also real risk. Some subjects don't want to wake up. Reality feels like a downgrade. The Foundation implemented mandatory cooldown periods because people were essentially getting addicted to being heroes. But if you think a dream book changing someone's life is strange, wait until you meet an SCP that was literally classified as a murder monster before anyone bothered to ask what it actually wanted. SCP-5031, yet another murder monster. The Foundation literally named this thing yet another murder monster. That's the official designation, and they got it completely, embarrassingly wrong. SCP-5031 is a humanoid entity that looks like something crawled out of your worst nightmare, decided it didn't like the vibe, and chose kindness instead. When the Foundation first contained it, they took one look at this thing and went, Yep, that's a murder monster. Classic murder monster. Throw it in a cell, which is, not ideal for something that was actively trying to help people. Here's where it gets interesting. Testing log 5313 revealed that the screams everyone was so terrified of actually prevent migraines in 95% of listeners. 95%. The thing they classified as a lethal vocalization was basically free healthcare, so the foundation quietly downgraded it to safe class, soundproofed a lounge, threw in some beanbags, and now personnel literally queue up for 15-minute scream therapy sessions. From murder monster to wellness retreat in one reclassification, but the detail that genuinely got me was the sign language. SCP-5031 realized its voice frightened children, so it taught itself sign language. A creature terrifying enough to earn a kill-on-sight classification looked at a scared kid and thought, I should be quieter. The Site-19 daycare staff now consider it their secret weapon. Nap compliance is at levels previously thought impossible. Every toddler out cold because the murder monster learned lullabies. And log 53-119 confirmed it calmed an entire rioting D-class wing by humming through the intercom system. Guards couldn't do it. Sedatives couldn't do it. One lullaby from the thing they almost terminated on sight, and everyone just went to sleep. Sometimes the monster isn't the monster. Sometimes it's the people who wrote murder on the label without checking. But if you think a misunderstood lullaby singer is emotional, wait until you meet the entity that sits with people when absolutely nobody else will. SCP-4999. Someone to watch over us. Most SCPs on this list are friendly in a way you can wrap your head around. A tickle monster, a teddy bear, a comic book that thinks you're cool. SCP-4999 is friendly in a way that might genuinely make you cry at your desk. SCP-49999 is designated someone to watch over us. It appears exclusively to people who are dying completely alone. No family, no friends, nobody in the world who would notice they're gone. The forgotten, the abandoned, the ones society stopped caring about. And in their final moments, SCP-49999 sits beside them. It pulls out a cigarette, offers one to the dying person, and just stays there. That's it. It sits with them so they don't have to die alone. The Foundation can't contain it, doesn't even try. SCP-4999 is classified as self-containing because it only appears when someone is genuinely, verifiably alone at the moment of death. The second anyone else enters the room, it vanishes. Security cameras can capture it, but no living observer can be present. It literally cannot be contained because its entire existence is conditional on nobody else being there. And here's where the scale gets you. This thing appears worldwide. Every country, every forgotten hospice bed, every back alley where a homeless person is breathing their last. The Foundation has documented appearances across 6 continents. It doesn't discriminate by age, race, language, nothing. The only qualifying criteria is that absolutely 0 people on Earth care enough to be at your side when you die. SCP-4999 fills that absence. It doesn't heal them, doesn't save them, doesn't say a word. It just sits there, shares a cigarette, and makes sure the last thing a forgotten person experiences is the presence of someone who showed up. I don't know what to tell you. That's just beautiful. It weaponized basic human decency against the worst possible loneliness, and it does it every single day. But if you think a cosmic caretaker is impressive, wait until you meet the entity that claims to have created everything in the first place. SCP-343. God. So we've gone from friendly pets to emotional support blobs to interdimensional therapists. Now we're talking about an elderly man who claims to be the literal Abrahamic God. And the Foundation just sort of went, yeah, okay, here's a room. SCP-343 lives in a comfortably furnished room inside a Foundation site. He can request items, and those items just appear, not delivered by staff. They materialize. His containment protocols are essentially keep him happy and let him do his thing. No reinforced walls, no Scranton reality anchors, no armed guards. The Foundation doesn't contain him, he contains himself, and everyone just quietly agrees not to make a big deal about that. Here's the thing, this entity can apparently alter reality at will. Objects appear from nothing, he's walked through walls, he can make himself invisible. Staff have watched him reshape matter like it's nothing, but the Foundation can't actually test any of it because every attempt to study his abilities just doesn't work out. Equipment malfunctions, results come back inconclusive, perspective, it's like trying to measure something that doesn't want to be measured, which is, you know, the most God thing imaginable. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. SCP-343 claims to be omniscient. He knows things he shouldn't. He references events he wasn't told about. He knows personnel by name before meeting them. And when researchers brought up SCP-682, the unkillable hate lizard, something strange happened. He claimed he couldn't see it, said it didn't exist. An entity that claims to have created literally everything suddenly has a blind spot for one of the most dangerous anomalies in containment. That's either a limitation or a lie, and both options are terrifying. The Foundation's official stance? He's probably not actually God, but they can't prove he isn't, and they definitely can't contain him against his will. So they give him what he wants and hope he keeps being friendly, which has worked so far. But if you think a self-proclaimed deity in a comfortable room is the peak of SCP friendliness, wait until you see what happens when an entire reality decides to be kind. SCP-6001. Avalon. Every other SCP on this list is a creature, or a person, or a thing. This one is an entire reality, and it exists for one reason: to fix you. SCP-6001 is a pocket dimension accessible through a specific oak tree inside Site-19. You walk through, and you're standing in a sunlit meadow that stretches in every direction. Warm breeze, perfect temperature, the kind of place that feels like a memory you can't quite place. But here's the thing, it's not just pretty scenery. This place actively heals you. Medical logs confirm complete remission of stage 4 cancer in 12 subjects after 72-hour stays inside Avalon. Time dilation means 10 hours in the meadow equals roughly 1 minute in the real world, and across 200 documented entries, 0 aging has been observed. You could spend what feels like days in paradise and walk out having missed lunch, but the effects fade. After 30 days outside, the healing starts to reverse. Paradise with an expiration date. The Foundation enforces strict 14-day cooldown periods between visits, with priority given to critically injured personnel. Over 300 staff members carry what are called Avalon tokens, small physical objects granting emergency access to the dimension. Something straight out of a fantasy novel, except it's a laminated badge clipped to a lab coat. Now here's where it gets devastating. Log 6001-88 describes the environment generating a perfect replica of a researcher's childhood home. His deceased dog was there, greeted him at the door. The dimension had read his subconscious and built him exactly what he needed. That interaction ended an 8-year battle with clinical depression. A pocket universe looked inside a grieving man's mind and said, "Here, I found this for you," and the Foundation keeps it locked behind clearance levels and cooldown timers. A dimension that could theoretically save millions, accessible only to people with the right badge. You can understand why. You can also understand why it makes people furious. But if Avalon is paradise with strings attached, the next entry is something even stranger. A being that finds you at your absolute lowest and asks for nothing in return. SCP-7000. The Loser. Every other SCP on this list is a thing, a blob, a bear, a book, a man in a nice apartment, something the Foundation can point to and say that right there, that's the anomaly. SCP-7000 is not a thing, it's an idea, and it might be the most powerful entry in the entire database. SCP-7000 represents humanity's collective resilience, and it manifests as a kind stranger who shows up during moments of existential despair, rock bottom, the kind of dark where you can't see a way forward. And when it appears, it says 5 words. You are doing great. That's it. That's the anomaly. Between 2015 and 2025, SCP-7000 prevented 893 documented suicides. It doesn't look the same twice. In Japan, it appeared as a samurai. In Brazil, a nurse. Always someone culturally specific. Always someone the person would instinctively trust. The Foundation tracks its appearances through civilian tip lines, and here's the thing, there is 0 containment. None. You cannot contain hope. The file basically says just watch and take notes. Cross-analysis with SCP-2718 revealed that SCP-7000's interventions create temporary memory anchors against oblivion, meaning it doesn't just save lives, it gives people something to hold on to. But the detail that broke me was this. During the 2020 pandemic, SCP-7000 simultaneously appeared to 12,000 frontline workers across the globe, not as a stranger this time, as their deceased mentors. The people they lost, the people who taught them why they got into medicine in the first place. And every single one of those 12,000 apparitions delivered the exact same speech, word for word, across every language on Earth. Foundation Report 7000-0 Alpha confirmed it. The name The Loser isn't cruel, it's the point. It appears to people who feel like they've lost everything, and it tells them they haven't. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's just humans being kind to each other in the worst moments, and the Foundation slapped a number on it. Honestly, I don't think the distinction matters. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.